Hello and welcome to the Monster Mechanics Podcast, where we take creatures of myth and media and see how they can be improved. I am your host, Scott Paladin, and with me, as always, is the Beavis to my butthead, Zach Jaquays. What are we talking about today, Zach?
This week we are talking about monsters in my pocket, not to be confused with Pokemon or Pocket Monsters or Digimon or any of those other small monsters.
Okay, please. This is your thing, Zach, so please explain to me, what are monsters in my pocket?
Monsters in my pocket were basically they were a toy line back in the early 90s, where they were basically like inch tall, like little like silicone injection rubber monsters that range anywhere from, like griffins to like classic monsters like vampires, Frankenstein's monster, which I think they eventually ended up having to change that due to copyright issues. Yeah, they were like just a little collectible figurine. They were given point values. I remember as a child, this was my jam. I loved monsters and I loved collecting things. And my parents wouldn't get me Pogs, so monsters in my pocket. It was those and battle beasts.
Man, they went deep on some of these. Like by the time they got to like Series 4, they were going. They were making deep cuts on some of these. They got Jersey Devil. Yeah. Cool. Okay, yeah. So and then while we were talking about this, I found out that there was not one but two different animated versions of this. There was a CGI series which I didn't look up, but there was also an animated. They called it a TV special, but it was very obviously a pilot for a TV show that never got picked up. In which literally like. A vampire and the Invisible Man and the Wolf Man and the Frankenstein were all shrunk down by super science, and then had to team up with a little girl to go try to God damn it. This is the 90s in animation. They had to team up with a little girl to try to stop the evil monsters.
All while searching for a cure to being shrunk down.
Yep.
What I never actually saw the show as a child, but I did have a comic book. Based off of it, in which the monsters in my pocket had to deal with the Tyrannosaurus Rex, which was actually one of the collectible ones, as it basically ate radiation and gradually grew larger and larger and began to breathe fire, and definitely wasn't at all Godzilla.
Oh, that's funny. This is a tangent, but the existence of small comic lines in order to sell toys is hilarious to me, because this isn't the only. That's not the only one that happened. Did you ever see the action figures for the Aliens movie?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. In the 90s, they released Aliens action figures, specifically like based off of Aliens, not Alien. This was the sequel. So they had, Corporal Hicks and they had Bishop and all that stuff, except the continuity was very distinctly different than the movies. Like the various people had they had different weapons. They had different personalities. They had different, one of the dudes has a big, a suit that makes him look like a xenomorph. And he's like the infiltrator guy. That was the toy that I had. But with each of these characters came a little tiny comic book in which all of the continuity is completely different. They have it's a separate universe entirely. Like Lieutenant Ripley is a lieutenant in the army. She's not like a lieutenant on a salvager ship. She's literally everybody's commanding officer as they go fight the xenomorphs. It's really silly and bonkers, and I kind of love it. I managed to find them all.
I kind of get why they do that, because you got this kid who's got these toys and they want some sort of IP to tie it to, but you're not going to show your 6-year-old, Alien and
That's
traumatize them for life. So you instead show them the child-friendly version. You got the comic books or the animated series or whatever that's completely different.
Yeah, that's true. That being said, you won't show your child your 8-year-old Alien, but my parents took me to the movie Glory when I was 9.
I'm not familiar.
Glory is a Civil War movie about the first, or not the first, but one of the very first all black regiments, and it ends with them all horribly dying in battle and being buried in a mass grave. It's super, and there's whipping and in it. Like there's like what's the word? Lashes. You know, they have to whip a dude as punishment. It's fucking gory as like it's incredibly gory and dark. And I'm like, why did you bring me to this as a small child? Okay, well, back to Monsters in My Pocket then.
Yeah. So, like one of the interesting things was sort of like the ranking system that they introduced for them, where like they assigned point values. So, and it's sort of like also kind of translated to a rarity. Like I remember getting a bunch of them trying to hunt down like all the 25-point monsters because, you know, those were the best at the time. Later on, they had some inflation and, you know, you had your 50 and 100-point monsters.
Yeah, this really does feel a lot like Pokemon, man. Like they're with the collectible and the point values. Let's see. So they were launched in 1990.
I do have to wonder if it was like a direct response to, you know, the creation of Pokemon.
Well, Pokemon Red and Green came out in 96. So these are well before that then.
Interesting.
I'm quickly perusing the Pokemon Wikipedia article to make sure it doesn't link back to Monsters in My Pocket. It doesn't seem to, or at least they didn't mention it on the Wikipedia article, which, you know, if there was some truth to that, Nintendo might be scrubbing this article periodically. But it is entirely possible that things just get independently conceived of in multiple areas. Because like Dennis the Menace exists both in the US and in Britain. This is just the Monsters in My Pocket never took off the same way. I guess because they never made a Game Boy game for it.
Yeah. Like I remember these basically being like my miniatures, like when I was, you know, setting up Dungeons and Dragons games as a child, like, you know, I'd bust out my small purple griffin figure or whatever.
Yeah. I love that they specifically mentioned the Jotun troll. Like it's a troll. It's very specifically a Norse troll from Jotunheim.
I was just saying, imagine at that point in time, like they had to disambiguate with like the trolls that were the, you know, the brightly colored, the troll dolls.
I wonder if this list on Wikipedia is like a real, like the actual list, or if somebody's translating these. Because if this is like the list, the official list, then somebody like did some deep cuts and like got the right names and stuff. Although these things don't really look like they would, that's fine. But like somebody with some love for monsters, like actually was in here.
No, yeah, I remember a lot of these.
Gremlin, the Phantom, Mad Scientist, Winged Panther, Karen, the Beast, Witch. Yeah, Jotun Troll. That's awesome. Yeah, somebody with some real, like, with some chops, like actually did the research and like went to the library and looked up some shit in order to like pull some of these. That's great. Because this was before Wikipedia. You couldn't find this information as easily back in the 90s. Okay, so
like most of my familiarities with Series 1, not so much the later ones, but yeah, they definitely had a lot of legit monsters in here.
Yeah. Like, but I mean, like even Series 1 has some deep pulls. You know, like Kitsune was not something that would have been widely known in the West in 1990, you know?
Yeah.
Somebody did some work. I love that they have the hide behind. That's great. Okay, so we have to do our thing to these though. Like,
sure, yeah.
We have to come up with some, I don't know, like cohesive world maybe, which would explain why all of these things are real and tiny and collectible. I think the collection has to be part of it. Like specifically like going out and collecting the creatures and like gathering them together in some sort of way needs to be part of like why these things are the way they are. Is there like
maybe monster hunting is like a big thing and like just, you know, in any IP, like you got the heroes that go out and like, what if this was like in whatever, like for whatever reason in this world, like the way you dealt with monster threats was to like miniaturize them.
See, I was thinking that if it was like, if there was some creature or entity above humanity, we're talking about like gods or maybe aliens who come down to Earth and see all of these weird creatures and then are like, this would make a great collection game. And they start grabbing these creatures and like collecting them and like it's their version of Pokemon a little bit, but it's all monsters. And the thought I had was the reason why they can fit in pockets is because whatever these entities are just huge. Like it's kaiju playing with like regular Wolfman.
Interesting. Picturing Cthulhu with a little work shirt and a little pocket protector and just
that's hilarious.
Full of Wolfman.
Yeah, let's do it. That these are
All right.
the eldritch entities that rule the universe are pulling from mythology of this is a sort of Dresden Files, Gargoyles universe where all myths are true, right? Like this is an Earth where all of the creatures, all the things that we've ever made up happen to exist. And what's the word? Like Naharlothep or whatever his name is, and Cthulhu and Yog-Sothoth or whatever are all gathering up their various armies in order to collect them together. Is it real Pokemon? Are they battling each other, or is this like a tabletop miniatures Warhammer game, or is it really just about collecting and like having?
It's a dating sim.
Dude, we just recorded the horny energy from the Mass Effect podcast we just recorded infect your brain or something that's not normal. Are you okay?
Oh, that's a deep question that we don't have time to get into. But
do you know the story of what is it called? It was the horniest. It was the largest Patreon entity on Patreon until its removal because they self-imploded, and it was a fucking porn game about monster breeding.
I'm not familiar.
I know I can remember the name of the replacement for it. Okay, so the editor, Scott, if you found the answer, or audience, if I've left it in here and I'm getting it wrong, until I think this was 2015 or so, the largest Patreon account on Patreon was a porn monster breeding game with a bunch of flash animations, summon monsters from all the dimensions to breed them together Pokemon style, and there were full-on animations and stuff. And it famously had a giant controversy where the guy who did all of the art like took all of the art out of their like central repository, like their files and stuff, and like ghosted the other creator because he felt he was being underpaid, and then started his own game separately and had this huge, like incredibly like divisive internet fight over it and then imploded over like a single weekend.
Ah, yes. The Monster Girl breeding game, Civil War.
Man, they took it seriously.
2007 or something.
Dude, there was it was like $15,000 a month or something like that. Like it was a real Patreon thing. Like they owned a company with like multiple employees and stuff. They had like, these guys had health insurance off of horny monster games. I mean, but fair enough, you know. Let's not include any of that content in the actual idea that we're talking about today. Sure, yeah, no, because we don't want to. I prefer not to get into the actual mechanics of these things being bred. Okay, let's just declare that this is Warhammer 40K. Sure, yeah, or BattleTech or something like that. This is a tabletop game that these guys are all playing with actual monsters. Okay, so the Eldritch Abominations. Okay, so are they coming to Earth and grabbing individual monsters, or did they like copy them to make their little things? Which sounds, because then we have to deal with rarity value, right? Like I like the idea that they're just like in all the extended mythology, like you didn't have like, you know, multiple Frankenstein's monsters or anything. Like there's just the one guy. Yeah. So I like the idea that like they're collecting the actual one. Okay. So they went down and they grabbed Frankenstein's monster. And then, but there are other creatures on this list of which there is a population, you know, like you could go get a bunch of goblins, you know, you could go get a bunch of vampires, but like there's only one Baba Yaga. Yeah. And one Kali. Oh God, the idea that somebody would get Kali, the god of destruction from Hinduism, like who can like destroy the world. That's a high point value right there. Yeah. Master of death, time and change. Yeah, that's hilarious. At the same time, I wonder if there's like how problematic is that if you're like, you know, grabbing something out of a, you know, a current religion and assigning a point value to it on par with, you know, the Hydra or so I think that the Wolfman. See, my response to that is to just treat everything with equal disrespect and be like, okay, so Jesus is on this list as well. And he's got a very low point value because he can bring people back from the dead, but like that's useful. So he's like a support healer class, but there's only one of them and he doesn't have any offensive capabilities. So like, yeah, although if you kill him, he comes back 3 days later, I guess. And I mean, Catholicism is full of saints, man, none of whom are going to have high stat values. True, yeah. Okay, so they're going and grabbing actual creatures. Because like, I feel like we may make the rule that like if it's a currently worshipped religion, we will leave them out. But I still want to be able to grab Cerberus, who's just a good boy.
Oh yeah.
But like probably not Kali, I guess would be appropriate. Let's see. So maybe one of the ideas is that so like.
Oh my God! Sorry, I was just looking at the Wikipedia list of them, and by way of falling down a rabbit hole, I've discovered the bishop fish, and it is amazing.
Bishop fish.
Let me send it to you.
According to legend, it was taken to the king of Poland who wished to keep it. It's like a dude that looks like a bit like.
It's just a dude with like in a fish suit.
This is the worst fursona I've ever seen. Listeners, I will endeavor to remember to link this in the show notes because it is hilarious. Okay, so we've got. Okay, so pulling off of an idea that I think we've touched on before, which is the idea that belief creates monsters. That like there's something special about the imagination of humanity that like by creating these belief systems and like mythology and stories and stuff like that, that we like manifest the actual creatures to exist. Maybe Earth is to Cthulhu and the other Eldritch abominations who want to turn their our myths into their tabletop game. We are like the Games Workshop for them. Like we're the company that does these releases sort of naturally. Like they're sort of one of the reasons why they haven't destroyed Earth yet is because we manifest these creatures that they can then use in their games. And like, so therefore like the Cyclops, you know, a myth that's only, you know, that is actually several thousand years old is like an early release, you know, tier 1 creature. Like it's series 1. And then like they're constantly like watching, humanity to be like, what are they going to come up with next? Oh, they got the Chupacabra. Okay, interesting. Like, and then like, what about Slender Man? You know, and what about the Siren Head and stuff like that? Like the myths that rise to prominence within our cultures are new releases that then get pulled out and like used within the this giant game.
I love the idea that like there's just like this nerdy like fan culture like all these new releases are just so overpowered, and it's just like
oh man, in that case, then they're fucking grabbing Batman and shit. Like these guys have got.
Oh yeah. Like they've just basically just got like this big like who would win bracket with all these.
Oh, it is a who would win bracket. This is the ultimate showdown of Ultimate Destiny, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, here's a fact that fucking blew my mind. Do you know the unnecessary censorship on The Count? You know, where it's the Count?
Yeah.
The guy who did Ultimate Showdown of Ultimate Destiny also did that. Who is also the guy who did like mouth sounds. It's like Lemon Demon, Neil Concierge, and like he's like the dude who just keeps like making internet shit that apparently gets popular. Like he's that. Yeah. Anyway, sorry, complete tangent.
No, that's cool. Like the internet is just controlled by 3 guys, I'm sure.
Yeah, man. Probably. they keep popping up. Okay. So what's the format of this game? Like when they bring quote unquote mad scientist from our universe and bring him into this tabletop game, are they like if that guy gets eaten by a griffin, do they have to go get a second one, or is there some sort of like, or do they respawn them, or is it?
Yeah, I feel like there's probably like, you know, like you are, because they're these eldritch beings with no you know.
Yeah.
Regard for these lesser creatures. They're like, you know, they'll just, you know, it's just this is another never-ending Promethean hell kind of thing.
So they're like they're cloning them or something.
Yeah, cloning or just straight resurrecting, or
I think they're
reassembling.
I think they go back because they're probably like higher dimensional entities, so they literally just grab a version of them from earlier on the timeline and pull him forward.
Maybe it's like some kind of like up game, like where these point values like are like basically they're like what's keeping them alive. Like
okay,
like everything gets like a base point value when they're introduced into the fold or whatever, and then like they're just pitting each other against, like the point values will fluctuate as you do better against other creatures, and you know decrease as you lose battles.
Oh,
and
okay.
like if you just constantly lose, like you might just be relegated to, you know, obsolescence or
okay. And then maybe at some point for like if we're going full like tabletop Pokemon like weird rules thing, maybe there's a thing where you can like you recycle old monsters to like feed the point value of your higher value ones. So it like gives you a reason to like, so once you get down to like 2 or 3, you can like, I don't know, mulch up your Griffins and feed them to your Wolfman or something so that he can get it. You can feed their point values into his. Isn't that how it works in Pokemon Go?
Yeah. I think
didn't you mulch your Pokemon?
You grind them up. you grind your extra copies up and paste them onto your god tier Pokemon.
Okay. So and then your point value is a reflection of how powerful the creature is. So they could like theoretically, if I was like power gaming the system or something, I could. Does it have to be the same type? Do you get fed like you have to like Pokemon Go style? You have to feed your Griffin pellets to other Griffins, or can you feed your Griffin pellets to your Invisible Man?
I guess that kind of goes back to like whether they're creating multiple copies of these, or if
it's just grabbing the one.
Yeah.
Because I like the idea that at some point late in the game you start ending up with like a mashup culture where it's like, okay, I've got my Invisible Man who I can use to produce, I don't know, something that I can then make invisible Griffins with or something, or I can use my Cerberus to I don't know, get three-headed cockatrices or something.
Or maybe like the league tournament or whatever is like team based. So like you need to field a team of, a handful of these monsters or whatever.
Yeah. I'm figuring you've got like an army, like it's Warhammer style where you've got a point value that you have to like, you're going to put out 600 points worth of stuff. And then, you let them loose on the tabletop and see how many of them survive at the end or something.
Yeah, whether you're just putting out like your 600 point Baba Yaga or Baba Yaga, or just 100 Wolfmen.
I don't know what. I think Baba Yaga is too OP because like she could just turn people into. Like I feel like that's like a 600 point. I'm not sure I would face off 5 Wolfmen against a Baba Yaga and expect that ever to go one way or the other.
Yeah.
Because some of these are definitely like the power imbalance between Baba Yaga and like a goblin or the Chupacabra. This is just a creature that eats goats.
Yeah.
Versus essentially a god. The Nandi bear. Oh, it's an East African. Yeah, these guys were like pulling.
Yeah. Like looking back, like I'm learning about. we got.
What the is an elbow witch?
Like I feel like this just spawned a bunch of future episodes here.
Maybe. Oh, okay. It's a Native American creature, or not creature, but person. They have spikes on their elbows. Okay, cool. Okay, I feel like the natural. Maybe they're not grabbing they are grabbing the instances of them off of Earth. But like you have so they went out and they grabbed like Frankenstein's monster, and only one of those exists, but they're not fielding those particularly. They're like instantiating them because then I like the idea that you could like there's some sort of fusion dance mashup version of it where you can like squish them together and make different versions of things. Like because I like the idea of like the weird mashups they would create, like Tyrannosaurus Rexes that have been like mashed up with bunyips and Bigfoots and like vampire werewolves and like Medusa mummies and stuff. Like,
oh yeah, so they're performing like some kind of like weird monster alchemy. Just
or maybe oh no, this was a feature set that was added into the game once they got like they didn't grab Frankenstein's monster, they grabbed Frankenstein, the mad scientist, and so you had to go at like various.
This was an expansion pack.
This was an expansion pack with a whole new set of rules that they were allowed to pull from.
After the base game kind of became stale after Baba Yaga sat at the top of the list for 3 seasons or something. Like, all right, we got to shake things up.
Yeah. What if we smush our werewolf and our Tyrannosaurus Rex and our Kraken together? Is that powerful from the Baba Yaga? And it's like, yeah, sure, why not? Like it's inevitably it's got like that point value creep where like you were talking about where like. It starts off, everybody's fielding 100-point armies, and then like a couple thousand years later, everybody's got like 1,000-point armies, and everything's bigger and meaner, and like They've got trolls mixed with ghouls and stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, are we? Do we have more we want to explore in this space, or you want to move on to listener questions?
Let's move on to listener questions. I think we've more or less
Tapped out.
gone about as far. Yeah.
Okay, let me pull these back up here. Put the call out the other day, and Richard Kreutz Landry answered the call. So we'll.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you for keeping this show afloat.
But we will start with our one non-Richard question, which is James Malloy, friend of the podcast, asks, "What is the best kind of ancient alien?"
The best kind of ancient alien.
So there's a joke that I heard the other day, which I love, which was that ancient aliens came to ancient Earth to learn how to build pyramids, like, which I think is very funny.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's like, I don't know how many different kinds of ancient alien there are. There's like, if you look at like Babylon 5 is on my mind because we just talked to Anna on in 7, where there are ancient aliens in that, which is that the Vorlons came to Earth in the past and juiced us up with special genes to make telepaths to come later. So like there's came to Earth long ago to genetically manipulate us. There's also the ancient, quote unquote, ancient aliens of 2001, which were like, they found monkeys and turned us into humans because they wanted to have more sentient life in the world. There's also the ones that make, like they just came down and made some pyramids, I guess, and pretended to be gods. I'm trying to think of other instances of ancient. There's the Stargate.
You got the Reapers.
You got the Reapers. You got Stargate. You got, what else? I mean, if you're talking Mass Effect, there's not just the Reapers, but there's the Protheans too.
Protheans, yeah.
And like, I guess the Rachni were on the moon. Spoiler alert, I guess. I don't know. I think I'm going to go with the Vorlons, on my opinion, because like the fact that they came from, it's because it's such a stupid fucking part of the lore in Babylon 5, where like Vorlons, in order to fight their ancient enemy, found telepath genes in non-sentient monkeys on some planet, and then went around the galaxy implanting the telepath gene into a bunch of other sentient races, so that they could use those sentient races as living weapons 10,000 years in the future or whatever. It's such a dumb idea that I kind of like it, where it's like they just come around and muck around with people. And then in the process of doing so, they implanted in everybody's cultural memory the idea that Vorlons were angels. So these creatures, whenever they take off their suits and people see them naturally, are like, they look like angels. So everybody's like, oh yeah, angels, except they're just aliens who came around and with our DNA. It's pretty good.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I gotta say, just like from a personal favorite, just probably not even like what would have been my go-to, but just because of its special place in my heart, I got to go with the aliens from The Fifth Element.
Oh yeah, they're good. What are their name?
God, I don't remember. Like, I guess it's time to do a rewatch, but
they are
the Mondoshawan.
Yeah, that's another good but also stupid series.
Yeah.
And then I'm also reminded, I was thinking about the alien, oops, we accidentally incepted you into thinking that we are from your culture. There is an Arthur C. Clarke book, called Childhood's End. It contains one of the stupidest versions of, not stupidest, I don't know. I remember being like, wait, this is a dumb idea, which was that, so like these aliens show up on Earth and they invade, but they like start giving technology out to humanity, and like it actually turns the world into a utopia, but they won't let anybody see them until like they've fully integrated, like completely made us all into like not subservient, but like we rely on them and like have lots of good feelings for them. And then when they reveal themselves, it turns out they look exactly like devils, because like they're big winged dudes with horns. And
interesting.
The reason is because they visited in the past, and then like the memory of doing that like got into our culture, so that when they came back later, they're like, oh, oops, we accidentally made it harder on ourselves. So which is such a weird thing. But then like also it turns out that the only reason why they're around is because humanity is evolving into its next stage of being like an energy being that's going to rise to a higher level of existence, and that this species that is helping us is like a midwife species that helps that happen to a bunch. It's a f***ing weird story. It's like back when sci-fi could just be strange for no reason. All right. Also, there we go. For Zach, it's the Mondoshi ones, and for me, it's the Vorlons. I'm cutting this one, but how many licks does it take to get to the center of an owlbear? Richard, stop asking horny questions. what monster would make the best Treasure Island style pirate? And I think the answer to that one is Tim Curry, right? Who played?
I mean,
A, Tim Curry definitely acts like an alien, and B, he was Long John Silver in the Treasure Island version, the Muppets Treasure Island.
oh,
Okay, so a good monster for pirates. Well, there's like the space pirates from Planescape, the Githyanki, I think it is.
oh yeah.
Or the hippos.
Oh, the GIF.
The GIF. Yes, the answer is obviously the GIF because they already are Treasure Island style pirates, but they're in space and they're big fucking hippos. Okay, you have to design the defenses for your volcano layer. Go. Well, the obvious answer to that is don't have a volcano layer because, like, as we've learned from places like Vesuvius and such, like if you or just Bond films, like if you put your layer in a volcano, then you're going to like end up with that.
It will explode.
It will explode. Yeah, like I've played enough games of Dwarf Fortress to know how this goes. I personally think that like the proper kind of layer is the one that has like a magic spell or super technology on it that like lets people see it but not notice it. Which is like that's the one where like it's got the not my problem field on it is the proper defense for any kind of evil layer.
Oh yeah.
What do you think, Zach?
Oh, let's see. I don't know. I kind of want to go like the complete opposite way with that. Just like utterly ostentatious with it. Just the hubris of like, approach my volcanic layer and tremble mortals, like evil overlord style.
I mean, so you want the giant skull mountain?
Yeah, giant skull mountain, like the constantly smoking plume,
Yeah.
Cerberus at the gates.
Ooh, yeah.
It can only be approached by submarine, that kind of thing.
So since we're talking volcano layer, like, okay, so who's your minion? Is it just dudes or like, what's a proper minion? Or is it minions from the move from the?
No. God, like, I think I probably, and if it's in a volcano, I think I gotta go with like, bat-winged imps or something.
That's a classic.
So ones where you don't feel bad about like, sacrificing or lashing out in a fit of violent overlord rage to, demolish an imp that when your plans go awry.
I think I would go for something a bit more like Starro from the DC universe, which is like, not directly, like, because that's just the one thing, and it's definitely going to overthrow you at that point. But like where your minions are made up of like mind controlled or like resurrected dead, maybe, or like, yeah, okay. There we go. I want full necromancy. That's what I'm thinking. Where like instead of like hiring dudes and having to deal with health plans and stuff, you're just like raising skeletons and zombies from the dead, and then like giving them just enough intelligence that they can like do your books for you and like run the machinery and such. Yeah, there we go. And then they're completely disposable, and it's recycling. We're like eco-friendly then.
Who's your nemesis?
Ooh.
You can't have an evil layer and not have someone try to storm it.
So I think the proper way to game the system is that you got to pick a dude who is good enough that he won't ever actually kill you. So we're talking like your Batman's. We're talking about maybe honestly even Superman, because he won't come after you until you're like actually doing like you are threatening the world, and he will beat you. But he is just going to throw you in prison, which you're going to break out of easily, or you're going to run your evil empire from the prison. He's never going to like go too far and kill you. That's an optional. That's a pretty good choice.
Yeah, I don't think I'd go with like the plucky hero route because they're always going to win. They're always going to.
Oh yeah.
And they're gonna end your evil once and for all. And
you're not gonna pick an actual baby, Voldemort style.
Oh no. That's just. You may as well just like pick out your coffin right then too while you're at it.
Oh God, are we just remaking the evil overlord list from
a little bit? Yeah. maybe my nemesis could be a corporation or something like.
Yeah, like capitalism itself.
or like an adventurer's guild or something. Like,
sure.
Because then you're going to hang on a while until said prophesied hero eventually shows up. But that's inevitable when you pick yourself as an evil overlord layer, especially in a volcano.
Yeah. Or like maybe the goal is to be like the Act 1 villain who gets defeated by the heroes but doesn't die and then like hangs around kind of without anything to do in the story for a long time,
And then through the power of friendship.
Yeah. The assassin you sent is now part of my found family.
Yes.
Okay. What kind of monsters would live in a gas giant? These are all Richard questions, by the way, because he's the only one. Whenever I put these calls out, he's the one who gives me 500 different answers. So yeah, what kind of monsters would live in a gas giant? So there's the obvious answer of the balloon creatures, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like you got to go with like they travel around by just like, expelling gas through them or something.
Yeah, yeah. Although at least with the gas giant I have the most knowledge about is Jupiter, and man, you have got to be a seriously beefy creature to sustain the kinds of winds that are on Jupiter.
Mm-hmm.
There is also, I know that Venus has one of these, which is a zone where it's in the atmosphere, it's in the upper atmosphere, where like just by happenstance, the pressure and the temperature is like within habitable zone. Like, I know that exists on Venus. It's 50,000 feet above the floor or the surface or whatever, where like there's a 1 AU 30 degrees Celsius area. I wonder if I think there might be one like that on Jupiter as well, where like there's a band where like you really could have like creatures that were sort of terrestrial, sort of just like birds and stuff. Mm-hmm. Just as long as they can manage the winds, I guess. Or maybe they live in maybe they have a localized microhabitat within the eye of a large storm or something like that.
See, that's kind of what I was thinking is like, you've got that permanent storm on Jupiter, right?
Yeah.
Like I want my monster to be whatever is making that storm.
Ooh, that's good. Like a kraken or something at the bottom of that.
Yeah.
Or like, I was going to say like something that would be cool is because if you were a ghost, like you literally are a ghost, right? Like like the traditional Casper style, right?
Yeah.
You wouldn't be bound by gravity necessarily because you don't have material things. You could just fly up into space. And so like, who's to say that like Jupiter isn't fucking full of ghosts, like who just like have gone there and have their own society living in the clouds amongst Jupiter because it's this big wide open space that they can just hang out in. And it's a nice time. Like they're not bothered by the wind because they're not material,
Yeah.
And they get to go plummet down into the depths where the pressure doesn't bother them and see the solid mercury, the oceans of liquid mercury and like the solid iron core of Jupiter.
Yeah, that's kind of cool. Yeah, like Ghost Planet would be
I'm
interesting to go with that.
I like the idea that like the afterlife is not like another plane of existence. It's just like everybody just flies over to Jupiter, spends the rest of eternity hanging out in the red spot. Alternately, there are the kinds of lightning storms that you get on Jupiter are massive. Like the amount of static buildup and then discharge. So like you could totally have like electricity creatures. Like maybe did you ever see Titan AE?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So I think they're called the Drell. No, not the Drell. The Drest something. The Draws. We're gonna watch it tomorrow. As part of the thing. I got to put a notice out on the Discord about that. The Dredge. Yeah. It's like, it's just a being of pure energy that like lives within the like static discharges of a large storm. And at which point, like all of the, because your energy, you're not terribly bothered by high winds or things like that or pressures. You're just living as like as a creature, of electricity and stuff like that. That'd be kind of cool.
Yeah, I'd be on board for that.
Okay. Well, I think that's enough listener questions for today. We are going to head off and go back to living our lives and stuff. We will see you guys next month.
All right. Until next time.
All right. Bye-bye. Thank you for listening to this episode of Monster Mechanics. If you'd like to send us listener questions, we can be tweeted at MonsterMPod, or you can send us an email at monstermechanicspodcast@gmail.com, or you can ask questions in our Discord, which can be reached at scottpaladin.com/Discord. If you want to support the podcast, why don't you leave us a review in Apple Podcasts or Podchaser or Podcast Addict? We keep an eye on those, and it gives us a boost every time we read one. If you'd like to support us monetarily, we have a Patreon. It's patreon.com/monsterpod. Now for the credits. Monster Mechanics is produced and edited by me, Scott Paladin, and hosted by myself and my best friend, Zach Jaquays. All of the ideas generated during this podcast are released under a Do What the F*** You Want public license. This is a Library of Cursed Knowledge production.